physicality, mobility, hostility. In a place where only the toughest survive and the dominant thrive, one man stood above the rest. He was a player who was there when called upon, fought when challenged, and stepped up when someone was needed. He was a player who could skate, who could hit, who could knock you right out. Protector of the innocent, guardian of the weak, standing at 6'3", 220 pounds, he's Jovocop, number 55, Ed Jovanovski.
And there's Jovanovski moving up again. There's the pass, there's the goal! And Jovanovski has his fifth of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Edward Jovanovski was born on June 26, 1976 in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Due to his parents' Macedonian roots and the fact that dad was a soccer player in Europe, a young Jovanovski started out playing organized soccer. But years of watching Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights had intrigued him, and at the late age of 11, he started to play hockey, and he would not look back. As he recalls, he was casually at a house league practice and a coach there invited him to try out for his AA team. He would make the team and would eventually play for the Windsor Spitfires of the Ontario Hockey League. Jovanovski quickly gained attention for his strong skating, powerful shot, and physical presence. And at the raw age of 18, he already had the size to back up his tough game. Just look at his yearbook photo. I know I didn't look like that in high school. Due to his NHL-ready size and skill, in expansion Florida Panthers would select him first overall in the 1994 NHL entry draft. As a result of the subsequent NHL lockout, Jovanovski wouldn't get a chance to play for the Panthers until 1995, but once he did, he would make an immediate impact on their blue line, showcasing his defensive prowess and offensive capabilities. His aggressive playing style and leadership on the ice was evident, and it quickly endeared him to his team and fans alike. Jovanovski would finish his rookie season with 10 goals and 11 assists, and against all odds, he would go on a deep playoff run with the Panthers that year. Jovanovski was made for the playoffs, as his rough, rugged, hold-no-prisoner style of play suited the rigors of a 7-game series. He especially came into his own in round 2 against the Philadelphia Flyers, where he was given the task of shutting down the big, bruising players on the other side. His plan, to hit everything he laid eyes on. And he'd go on to not only do just that against the players like Brendamore and DeMaio, but he'd also put Eric Lindros in his back pocket, pulverizing him time and time again. And I must remind you, Jovanovski was still just a rookie. The Panthers would go on to beat the Flyers as well as the Pittsburgh Penguins in the next round, setting up a Stanley Cup Finals matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. Jovanovski would continue to hit and fight, but the Panthers were just too overmatched as the Avalanche went on to take the cup in 4 games. And little did Jovanovski know at the time, but this was as far as he'd get to the Stanley Cup. Over the next few years, Jovanovski would become a mainstay on the Panthers roster, but his numbers and overall play would fail to reach the next level, and some critics started to question whether he'd ever live up to his draft pick pedigree. The Panthers organization was disappointed to see a team go from a Stanley Cup finalist to a team failing to make the playoffs, but then a certain superstar was made available on the trading block. January 17, 1999, the Panthers would acquire the Russian rocket Pavel Bure from the Vancouver Canucks in a 7-player trade. And even though they still believed in their former number 1 pick in Jovanovski, the ability to acquire one of the top players in the world could simply not be ignored. Jovanovski's arrival in the West Coast was seen as a turning point in his young career, and his age would fit the timeline of the team's other young exciting stars. New head coach Mark Crawford's offensive style of play suited Jovanovski's skill set, as he was given the license to roam in the offensive zone, and over the next few seasons, Jovanovski would establish himself as one of Vancouver's top defensemen. He was aggressive, we already knew that, but his willingness to hit and fight anyone always gave his team the upper hand. He was energetic, as his two-way play allowed him to join the rush as well as return for his defensive duties. He he was a high-risk, high-reward type of player. During those mad scrambles on offense, you'd regularly see him pinch in from the blue line to overwhelm the other team. During his massive open ice hits, you'd see him lean into the hit, launching his opponent into the next orbit. Starting with his second full season with the Canucks in the year 2000, Jovanovski would go on to score 47, 48, and 46 points in 3 consecutive seasons, as he led all defensemen on his team and was voted the best Canuck defenseman in all 3 seasons. Even though Jovanovski and the Canucks would enjoy plenty of regular season success, they would suffer multiple first-round exits as Jovanovski would fail to capture the success from his rookie season. In the 2003 playoffs, Jovanovski would lead his team into the second round for the first time in 8 years, and even though he'd lead his team with 7 goals in the playoffs, they'd suffer a devastating Game 7 upset at the hands of the Minnesota Wild. In the following 2004 playoffs, the Canucks, who had won their division, battled the Calgary Flames to a 7th and deciding game in round 1. The Flames were up by 1 late in the game as the Canucks pulled their goalie and looked to equalize. Jovanovski was used as a net front presence, but he'd take a penalty with less than 30 seconds left in the game. It appeared that was the season, but the Canucks would go on to tie the game with just seconds left on the clock, and just look at Jovanovski celebrating all alone in the penalty box, unable to contain his excitement. And even though he was in the box for that same penalty in overtime when the Flames scored that series-winning goal, that raw emotion and pure euphoria had left a lasting impression on fans. With the NHL lockout in 2004 and 2005, as well as multiple injuries sustained after that, Jovanovski was reduced to just 44 games in the final year of his contract with the Canucks. And even though he was on pace to eclipse his career-high point total, the Canucks decided not to offer him a contract as they prioritized re-signing Luongo and the Sedin twins. Jovanovski would garner interest from multiple teams as an unrestricted free agent in 2006, but he ultimately chose to sign with the Phoenix Coyotes on a 5-year deal, as he was swayed by the prospect of being coached by the Great One, Wayne Gretzky. But as it would turn out, the Great One was only great at playing the game, and the Coyotes would only reach the playoffs once in Jovanovski's 5 seasons there. As a member of the Coyotes, Jovanovski would continue to intimidate the opposition with his physical presence, and he'd reach a new career high with 51 points in the 07-08 season. He'd go on to play his 1,000th game there, serve as team captain when Shane Doan was suspended, and he'd even score a hat-trick in a game as a defenseman. In 2011, after his contract had expired, Jovanovski would sign with the Florida Panthers, returning to the place he once called home. He'd go on to play 3 seasons there, although his time was riddled with injuries. In 2013, a 36-year-old Jovanovski would be named as the 7th captain in franchise history. And as he'd done all throughout his career, he'd lead by example and continue to impose his physical will on his opponents. Jovanovski would announce his retirement in 2015 at the age of 39, and he'd bring his on-ice passion to the press box, joining the Panthers broadcasting team as an analyst, a position he holds to this very day. Ed Jovanovski will be remembered for his cavalier style of play. Never the one to be tied down nor suppressed, he flourished when he had the freedom to join the rush to overload that offensive zone. He was able to sustain his physicality throughout his 18-year career, and it goes to show how effective he was, even when the game changed and those open ice hits went to the wayside. He was a master at using his shoulder, timing those body checks to perfection. His speed allowed him to close gaps on defense, and on offense, it allowed him to carry the puck up the ice. It's a shame Jovanovski never won the Stanley Cup. And who knew during that cup run during his rookie season, with all that poise and promise he showed, that was the final time he'd be in the finals. Despite his lack of a championship in the NHL, he certainly played like a champion, and he'd cement his legacy as a member of Team Canada, capturing the gold medal in the 1995 World Juniors, a second gold medal in the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake City, and then a third gold medal in the 2004 World Cup of Hockey. If there's one thing the story of Ed Jovanovski has taught us, it's to have self-belief. He started playing hockey at the age of 11 when he barely knew how to skate. But 8 years later, at the age of 19, he was already playing in the Stanley Cup Finals and was a key member of that cup run. Whether it's a hobby or a career change or just learning a new skill, it's never too late to begin. All you need is the heart, the desire, the belief, and just like Ed Jovanovski, who possessed an abundance of all those traits, you can also find success. Thanks for watching. Bye.